Hi, I'm Geoff Buys Cars. This is my Volvo V70 2.4, and in this video, I'm going back to the buying and selling stories. So in part one, I'm going to tell you all about this car and I'm going to sell it to you. Then you're going to buy it. And in part two, you're going to meet the buyer, find out why they bought this Volvo, and I'll tell you how much money I make on it. I'm not going to tell you that in the first video, but I am going to tell you all about this car, and it is going to feature a stripy deck chair. So, this is my 2000 Volvo V70 2.4. But what is it? Technically, it's a Volvo V70 Classic, which is the V70 before it sort of got shoulders with the one that came after. This V70 Classic is based on Volvo's P80 platform, which was introduced in 1991 with the Volvo 850.
Unlike anything Volvo has ever built before.
It definitely doesn't feel like a traditional Volvo.
Something new, exciting, and fun to drive.
This was Volvo's first foray into front-wheel drive cars. Prior to this, there'd been the 940, the 740, the 240, all of which were rear-wheel drive. The 850 was front-wheel drive, as was the V70. The P80 platform basically means it's a Volvo 850 in saloon and estate, a V70 in saloon and estate, known as an S70 when it's a saloon, and the C70. The V70 estate like this lasted until 2000, and the C70 convertible and coupe lasted until 2005. After that, it was replaced by the P2 platform, which had sort of shoulders on the ends and was a bit bigger. I've never really been a fan of the P2. For me, it's all about the classic shape. It takes on that sort of classic Volvo boxy shape that was sort of set by the Volvo 240 and the Volvos that came before. For me, this is the last of the proper Volvos. For some people, this one's not. It doesn't quite count, but I believe that they do count. It's quite distinctly different to an 850. It was a very different car, despite the fact that it looked the same. I found this car on Facebook Marketplace. It was cheap and I thought I've got to have that. And then I immediately regretted it because Mrs. Geoff said she wanted to use the money that I had from the Volvo 940 sale to buy a washing machine. So I decided not to buy it, which as you can see went pretty well. Anyway, I'd already contacted the seller, told him I was Geoff Buys Cars. He liked my videos, likes what I do, and decided he wanted to sell it to me. Although we did then turn around and say, actually I've advertised it far too cheap, can you give me an extra 50 quid? Which I thought was hilarious. Since I bought it, I've paid quite a lot of money to have it valeted properly because it was an estate, in estate, and now it looks fantastic. I've also gone through the paperwork, which is extensive. So, what kind of history does this car have? Well, I'll tell you. I sat down to go through the file, as I like to do, to make my spreadsheet, as I like to do. And I've got to admit, I was staggered by the history that this car has got. I've seen some pretty good history files in my time doing Geoff Buys Cars. The Saab 9.5, notable for being a very good one. Look at this! But this one, I think it's the winner. Check this out. Every single scrap of paperwork since the year 2000, including, wait for it, the original order form and price list. To geeky people like me, that's like finding the buried treasure of Cortez. If that's a thing. Someone Google that for me. Right. Here we go. Bear in mind, this car's done 174,000 miles. I got services at 8 miles. The purchase price on this car, and this is really interesting, was £17,817 plus £425 for metallic paint and the SE pack, which is £851. It's an SE. Interestingly, they part-exchanged a Volvo 850 against this car, registration plate P584XJO, and it had 35,000 miles at the time. That car went on to achieve a grand total of 156,000 miles and was last seen in the wild in 2013. If you've got that car in your yard, get in touch. It's a blue 2.5 10 valve. So the first owner had it for 15 years, and I bought it last week, or in fact 2 days ago. So one owner for 15 years, and then one owner for 7 years, and then me. 2 owner car. Happy days. Wait for it. £14,000. 14 grand spent on a car, 17 grand when it was new. here we have a £30,000 car that you can buy for nothing. It's done 174,000 miles and everything that is needed doing has been done. Why would you go and buy a brand new car for 10, 12, 15, 20,000 pounds when you're going to end up having to do all of those things, and at the end of that, it's not going to be worth any money? Don't go buy a new car, go and buy a really old one that's had all of the work done. Put my deck chair away and I'm going to show you all around the car, including all the good bits and all the bad bits, although there's not that many bad bits, so let's go. First up, I don't really like these wheels. I think if you're having a V70 Classic in this shape, you've got to have the T5 wheels. It's got the roof rails on it though, which I like. And as I said before, it is in the best colour. I did try to convince the wife that we were going to keep this, but she said she wanted a washing machine and that I shouldn't have spent the Volvo money on this car because I'd already bought 2 last week. And then, yeah, didn't go down very well, so buy it off me. Right, scuffs on this bumper, scuff on the front splitter there. Is it a splitter? Nah, it's a bumper, isn't it? Then we got a bit of rust coming through on the bonnet there and there, but generally it's a very straight, clean car. That's a good looking car. You can't tell me that that's not a good looking car, especially in that colour. Who does colours like that anymore? It's lovely. It's got a little hint of gold in it. I've got a bit of lacquer peel on this front corner here. Now I'm going to tell you about that in a minute. And then we got a bit on the bumper there. Now I've got a theory on that lacquer peel. There's one very interesting one dated June 2002 with a total bill of £3,092, which wasn't paid by the owner. It was paid by Volvo Owners Club Insurance Services. So, was this car in a crash early on in its life? I asked the previous owner and he said, I don't know, I'll ask the guy that bought the car new. But I think it was. I think this car was involved in a small crash early on in its life when it was worth a lot of money, hence the £3,000 payout. And I think that's also to blame for the lacquer peel on that front wing. Detective work from Geoff. So, down this side, really, not much to report at all. Just a clean and tidy Volvo. I've got a bit of rust on the boot here. And I've got a scuff on the bumper there. But like all Volvos of this age, they're all scuffed one way or another because they've all been used. And I've got a bit there as well. But generally speaking, that is one tidy Volvo. So, the V70 is huge. I've got a massive boot. I'm telling you now though, it's not as big as a Volvo 940. And this one does have the fold-up rear seats. But as I've said, I will be nicking those too. What's that look? Oh, that's nice, isn't it? Bit of a amethyst or something. If I can get the camera to focus on it. Oh, look at that. Precious stone. Comes with the car. Look at the size of that boot. Takes a precious stone with ease. In the back, we do have a problem with this seat base look. Not quite sure what's happened there. Looks to me like a small fire. So, maybe the previous owner can fill me in on what's gone on there. But as I said before with these Volvos, they tend to get used. That's Will's blanket. He's only 5 years old. I need to drop that back to him. That's really what I was on the way to do. Sorry, Will, I've got your blanket. I'll be round with it in a minute. Mrs. Geoff thinks I just popped out to drop the blanket back to you. Right. Here we go, in the front. Now, things that I do like. It drives like a modern car because it's on a more modern platform. But the 850 does the same. You've got this sort of brushed effect here instead of wood. I don't like wood in cars, I think it ages. However, there's evidence of cost cutting inside here. These buttons are not as nice as you get in an 850. Nothing is as good as you get in an 850. Literally nothing about this car is built as well as an 850. Even down to like the door handles, and you can see there's a bit of the trim coming off there as well. I don't like these switches. I think they're naff and they feel weird. Oh look, there's Spider-Man as well. Got it all in this video, haven't we? I don't think they're as good as the switches on a Volvo 850 that are in the middle. So there's my little bugbear with these V70s. on a Volvo A50, everything's in the inside here, and I just sort of prefer that. The V70, it just feels like this area is kind of missing something. Even the way the buttons are laid out, it's just, there's a quality issue with the V70. I would say the V70 Classic is to Volvo what all Mercedes-Benz of the early 2000s are to Mercedes. Just not quite as good. But that being said, I would rather own this than most Mercedes of that vintage, because the build quality on them was shocking. Right, I'll show you the engine, but bear in mind that it hasn't been cleaned, and the previous owner, I don't think, has ever cleaned the engine. Now, you'll notice from my other Volvo video that the 850 had a lever that comes through the middle here, whereas on this one, there's actually a lever underneath the back, which is a much better system. But that bit is attached to a bit of wire, right? Oh, shocking, take the car back. Right, look at mine. I've got a cable tie that just comes through the front. There you go, look. So, improvements. And the P80 was all new over the, you know, the V70 was all new over the 850. So this is the 2.4 litre naturally aspirated engine, whereas the one everybody wants is the R model, but I'll talk to you about that in a minute. In terms of the market, the cheapest ones to get into are cars like this, with a 2.4 litre naturally aspirated engine. They come in a variety of colours and trims, so choose one that you like. They are around, and you can find them in good condition, like this one. Volvos tend to be bought by people who love them, so it's not unusual to find one that's one or two owner with lots of history, like this one here. The ones everybody wants are, of course, the turbo models, the T5 and the R. Very, very cool cars indeed, and like the Volvo 850, T5 and T5R, they have got more and more popular. I mean, why would you not buy a 300 horsepower estate car from Sweden? They're just the coolest thing ever, especially in the wild colours like saffron orange. I would recommend, if you're looking at buying a Volvo R, go and buy one now before they get more and more expensive. The 850 has proven that the prices are going through the roof. The V70 Classic is going to follow because of the shape of it. As I said, before they moved to the P2 platform with those sculpted sides, there's just something about this shape of Volvo. So if you want one, I would advise you to buy one a couple of years ago when they were a bit cheaper. But if you didn't buy one a couple of years ago when they were a bit cheaper, I would buy one now. Now, go on, go and buy one. Go eBay, go and have a look now. Or send me a message about this one, because it's really nice. Well, I can't show you because I've forgotten to bring my camera mount, but I've done 100 and something miles in this car. It drives superbly. Everything seems to work really well. The service light's on because it's due a service, but the brakes work. It's got plenty of power. It handles really well. Everything works. Heaters work. My wife tells me the heated seats work, so that's a bonus. Aircon seems to work. What have I found that's not good about this car? Nothing that is like out of the ordinary. It's all just a bit of trim here and a bit of paint there. Like there's nothing major really that I'm thinking, oh, that's wrong. It's just a good old car with a great story and lots of history. I don't think it matters. Find one that you like, but I wouldn't go for an automatic just because of the fuel economy. This has a manual. With me, it's averaging about 34 miles to the gallon. You get a little bit better than that on a run. But if you go for an automatic, especially with a turbo, you're going to be looking at mid-20s for your MPG. And I have friends who have T5s, which get a lot worse. So if you want some fuel economy, go for the 2.4 petrol. Or, if you can find one, a diesel. But they've often got 300,000 miles on the clock because they were so good. Well, being a police car, basically. The police really like the Volvo 850 T5s, and they really like the V70s as well. So there's a lot of these around that were ex-police cars. You could actually special order police and taxi vehicles direct from Sweden, from Volvo, with little things like uprated this and uprated that and preparation for special equipment. So there are ex-police vehicles still out there. Can't talk about the P80 V70 Classic without talking about the XC, which was the four-wheel drive version, which, let's be honest, is cool as hell, despite the fact that it probably does 3 miles to the gallon. It was available in two-tone, known as duotone, and if you've got one in that sort of light browny colour in two-tone with the big rubber bumpers and those wheels that only came on the XC, then I want to buy it and do a video review. and I'm going to advertise it for £1,295. If you've got an offer, there or thereabouts, or a car you'd like to swap or trade from a Volvo V70 with 174,000 miles on the clock, do get in touch. I'd like to feature you in part 2 when we meet the buyer, notwithstanding the fact that I've got to find a buyer first. But after you've watched my video and heard all about the history on this car, you're going to want to buy it. Send me a cheeky offer and I will sell you this car. It'd be nice if you would be happy appearing on camera as well, so I can sit you in this seat right here and talk to you all about car things and your cars and my cars, and maybe we can, you know, go for a coffee or something like that. But if you want to buy this car and have a coffee with Geoff Buys Cars, then send me a message and you will feature on part 2. I mean, you should want to buy it. It's very cool. It's a 7-seater as well. Well, it's not anymore, because I'm going to nick the 2 rear seats to go in my Volvo 850, but it used to be a 7-seater. Don't get to have the deck chair with it though, I'm keeping that. Geoff Buys Cars.
YouTube's most boring car channel.